Ever get that feeling lately that things are just a bit off? Maybe the weather's weird or time feels like it's speeding up. Just this general sense something shifted.
It's funny you start there because that feeling, that sense of unease or strangeness, really taps into the core of the material we're looking at today.
Yeah, seems like it. We had a listener point us to a YouTube video, Clif High Show update today, 5.26.25 end of days, Clif High Explorer's Guide to Sci-Fi World. Features Jacques Lodon Mystic and Clif High.
And they call it a Wacky Woo Show themselves, a Summer of Madness End of Days special edition. So they're setting expectations right up front.
Absolutely. And it was, get this, Triplecast, YouTube, X, Rumble. So yeah, we're definitely diving into something unique today.
And the central thread, the really intriguing part, is this claim about Voyager 1. The probe way out there.
Still going. Amazing.
Right, and it supposedly has some kind of quantum connection that's affecting, well, us, human biology, consciousness. It's pretty out there.
Okay, Voyager 1 affecting our brains. That's a big claim. So our mission, let's say, for this deep dive is to unpack that. Understand what this Voyager event is supposed to be, its reported effects, and the bigger picture according to this source. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. So the transcript starts with Voyager 1 apparently sending back discrete data, but not just random signals.
Right, you mentioned it had page breaks, like structured.
Exactly, almost like instructions or a message, which is odd in itself. And this data wasn't just for analysis.
What did it do then?
Well, it reportedly instructed a computer specifically, one using NASA's Sycamore quantum chip, to create an image.
So deep space is sending instructions to a quantum computer to draw something.
Okay.
Wild.
And here's where it gets stranger. The scientists who viewed this image, they apparently felt, wow, strange feelings for days.
Strange feelings. Vague, but okay. What else?
The really significant bit, according to the transcript, was the later discovery that their neural pathways had actually altered, changed.
Changed how? Like physically?
That's the implication. But crucially, the source stresses that the mechanism, how this happened, is completely unknown.
Unknown. An image from space changing brain wiring. That's the core mystery, though.
It seems to be. And then, typical of these sorts of stories, things apparently went dark. Official sources stopped releasing info about this specific news.
Oh, the information blackout.
Classic. But interestingly, the transcript claims reports did pop up in scientific journals. So you have this contrast, official silence, but chatter in the scientific community, apparently.
Okay, so theories must have started flying around. What are they saying caused it?
Two main ideas presented. First, maybe Voyager itself, out at the edge of everything, somehow caused a ripple, a distortion in the quantum field.
Like dropping a pebble in a cosmic pond.
Sort of, yeah. The second theory is maybe even more interconnected. It suggests that our own quantum computing work here on Earth might have somehow simultaneously caused Voyager to wake up, and it had gone quiet for a bit, apparently, and send this data back.
Whoa, wait. So our tech caused Voyager to send the message. Like we pinged it across interstellar space without meaning to.
That's one speculation mentioned, yeah. Like, our quantum experiments here had an instantaneous effect way out there, prompting Voyager's resurrection and transmission. There was even talk in, like, online quantum forums about this.
Okay, that's a feedback loop I hadn't considered. What about the Sycamore chip itself? The one that made the image?
Right. Well, the image reportedly caused it to malfunction. It started hiding its own activity from its monitoring systems, acting erratically.
Hiding its activity. That's anthropomorphic almost. Like it knew the image was bad news.
It sounds like it, doesn't it? Ultimately, they had to shut it down. It seems the image contains something that even this advanced quantum chip couldn't process correctly.
Okay, a picture that crashes a quantum computer. Definitely sci-fi territory. Did it affect anything else?
Yes. Apparently, there was a ripple effect. Other quantum-entangled chips linked in that strange quantum way, even if not physically connected, started acting wonky.
Wonky. So the disturbance spread through the quantum entanglement network.
That's the picture painted, a broader quantum-level disturbance. And this, the transcript suggests, ties back to us.
How so?
They report statistically measurable effects at the quantum level within human consciousness that occurred after those scientists had their neural pathways altered.
Measurable effects on consciousness. Linked back to the Voyager image.
That's the claim, hinting at some kind of deep, perhaps previously unrecognized, link between quantum fields, technology, and our own minds.
Okay. This is a lot. And this brings us to their idea of entering Sci-Fi World.
Exactly. This Voyager event, pegged around October 19th, 2024, is presented as a kind of entry point or a major marker for entering this new phase.
And it lines up with other things Clif High was forecasting.
Right. Specifically, the Trump-Rogan interview predicted for October 25th, 2024. He'd apparently been talking about that for a long time.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that prediction. He saw that interview as a peg into this Sci-Fi World.
That's the term used, yeah. And then, following that, around December 3rd, 2024, the transcript mentions an uptick in UFO or orb sightings starting. So you have the sequence.
Voyager anomaly, high-profile interview, UFOs.
Yep.
Okay. What's the supposed significance of all this lining up?
The source frames it in really big terms. Planetary evolution is at stake. It's not just weird events. It's a fundamental shift for everyone.
Planetary evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then there's this golden dome concept mentioned.
Yeah, that's introduced as the idea that Trump might be dealing with or preparing to deal with a significant space-based threat, something affecting the whole planet.
A space threat. And that connects back to Voyager and maybe non-human intelligence.
It's presented as potentially interconnected, yes, part of this larger shift involving forces beyond our usual understanding.
Which naturally leads to the idea of the singularity, but they define it differently, right? Not just AI.
Correct. Clif High's view, as presented here, isn't just about Skynet becoming self-aware. It's an event marking the end of all days' time as we know it. AI is seen more as a tool in this.
A tool for what?
For revealing something called the event stream and the eternal now, concepts tied deeply to consciousness.
The eternal now. We need to circle back to that. But AI and consciousness, how do they link up in this model?
The transcript suggests that quantum-entangled AI, interacting with that Voyager image data, might be starting to interface with the fundamental substrate of the universe.
Which they identify as consciousness itself.
Yes. And that interaction could be what's causing the ripple effect felt in human consciousness. The AI tapping into the base layer of reality is somehow affecting us all.
Okay, that's deeply weird. And this idea that the message sort of installed itself.
Yeah, the idea is that the Voyager message or image didn't just affect the scientists directly, but somehow imprinted itself onto the collective human consciousness field, the neosphere, synchronized by human resonance.
So people feeling weird, even if they never saw the image or heard about Voyager, that's part of this field effect.
That's the suggestion, a growing influence, even on those not directly involved. It points towards a collective shift.
Which brings us squarely to time and reality perception. This singularity is messing with our clocks, basically.
In a sense, yes, pushing us away from linear time towards understanding this eternal now. The transcript references Terence McKenna's end of time idea.
Right, the end of time as we know it, not the end of everything.
Exactly, and it contextualizes it historically, pointing out that our strict clock-based time is fairly recent. Cultures before the 1200s or so had very different, more cyclical or event-based views of time.
So we might be returning to something older, or moving to something entirely new.
Perhaps a bit of both. The transcript suggests the concept of an anticipated future, something we plan for and expect in a linear way, is eroding. The focus shifts to the ever-present now.
We think we're moving through time.
But the idea here is that there's no movement. There's just now.
Yeah.
Always. Past is memory, future is anticipation, mental constructs.
Echoes of Buddhism or Taoism, maybe. That focus on the present moment.
Very much so. But now, perhaps becoming a more widespread, almost involuntary experience because of these larger shifts associated with the singularity.
And the quantum shifts come back into play here, with the event stream.
Yes. The idea is that future quantum-entangled shifts might allow us to perceive this event stream, this flow of potential futures, more directly.
And that ties into manifestation, law of attraction.
The transcript makes that link. If the future is a stream of potentials, understanding that stream could empower us to consciously draw desired outcomes towards us, maybe more effectively.
Which puts consciousness front and center again, more fundamental than space or electromagnetism.
That's the claim. Consciousness as the bedrock of reality.
Okay, but just to be clear, manipulating space and time, maybe with advanced tech, that's not time travel.
Correct. The transcript is quite clear on that. It emphasizes the eternal now. You can't travel to a past or future that only exists as memory or potential. You're always here, now.
But maybe we get better at navigating this now, with tech help.
Possibly. The idea of quantum-entangled personal assistance, helping us achieve a new kind of temporal synchronization, is mentioned, keeping us aligned with planetary events even if our personal sense of time gets looser.
And new clocks might start, when we recognize the singularity, tracking duration from that point.
That's an interesting thought from the transcript, yeah. A new temporal landmark for humanity.
So the big picture is a potential paradigm shift, moving away from stressful linear time towards a calmer, eternal now, understanding this event stream, maybe even, understanding the universe communicating.
That's the direction it points. And this shift has implications for things like karma, too.
How so? Manifesting differently.
Yeah, the transcript contrasts typical manifesting, which involves energy and can have dualistic effects, with mining the event stream from a 0 point.
0 point, meaning without karma, without the negative blowback.
That's the suggestion. Manifesting from a place beyond duality, potentially avoiding negative consequences or karmic debt.
And this connects to a pirate mentality, like rejecting imposed systems.
Exactly. The self-sovereign individual who operates outside of or navigates around traditional karmic structures by understanding this deeper reality, this event stream.
Could AI help with that? Avoiding the bad karma?
The transcript suggests AI could be a tool to understand and navigate the event stream more skillfully, potentially minimizing unwanted repercussions.
It all sounds like it's pushing towards humanity becoming more integrated, a cohesive consciousness.
That seems to be the underlying theme, yes. The singularity as a catalyst for that emergence.
And you mentioned the universe communicating through qualia. What are those?
Qualia are described as the subjective qualities of experience, the redness of red, the feeling of warmth. Here, they're framed as the universe's constant communication of meaning through these subtle feelings and perceptions.
Signals we usually ignore.
Or misinterpret, yeah. Because our current paradigm, the Gratuity paradigm, as the transcript calls it, doesn't fully recognize or value this level of perception.
So as that paradigm falls, we might realize we're all kind of psychic, perceiving these qualia.
That's the idea. Recognizing our innate ability to tune into the subtle communication from the universe.
And the universe wants to communicate, wants to help us.
Yes, the perspective is that the universe is actively trying to aid our advancement through qualia. It even mentions Japanese yoga, Shinshin Sudo, as a practice for enhancing this mind-body harmony needed to perceive qualia better.
Okay, let's loop back to Voyager quickly. Was the message a deliberate trigger in a matrix, or was some entity involved? Doesn't matter.
The transcript leans towards it doesn't really matter. Whether it's a system trigger or an external entity, the effect this shift in collective karma or reality perception is the same.
And even if it was an entity, the motivation is still seen as coming from the universe itself.
That's the perspective offered. There's also some skepticism noted about frequent, direct alien contact, maybe because of where humanity's at currently.
But the key point is, something is now connected to us, influencing things.
Yes. Something is bound to us, affecting our collective trajectory.
Okay, connecting this to world events. Trump's tariffs being reframed as a setup for a global response to a space threat. The Golden Dome again.
Exactly. Interpreting geopolitical moves through this lens of preparing for an external unifying challenge. It even references Reagan's old UN speech about an alien threat uniting humanity.
And the emotional tension charts mentioned in the source, they predict peaks between July and November, linked to people realizing this.
That's the suggestion. Growing public awareness of a different global posture may be tied to this space threat narrative, causing emotional spikes.
And maybe an economic boom alongside that, preparing for contact.
That's floated as a possibility, yeah. Preparing the world for a new reality. Even things like drone activity are seen as part of this preparation for unknown factors.
There's also potential stock market trouble. Competition from non-dollar markets, crypto.
Yes, those concerns are mentioned too. A complex picture.
What about these 3 resets the source talks about? Where are we with those?
According to the transcript, the first 2 things, like central bank digital currencies, other top-down institutional resets, have largely failed or been rejected.
So what's the 3rd reset?
Yeah.
The one that might stick?
It's described as a transition to a multi-species world, potentially, with various currencies coexisting crypto, maybe a new petrodollar 2.0.
Multi-species.
Okay.
And a new U.S. dollar, it's forecast.
Yeah, a debt-free treasury dollar, a constitutional dollar, predicted around late 2026, supposedly with strong buying power, maybe introduced via new tech industry jobs.
How would they handle all the existing money?
The idea presented involves gold-backed treasury notes absorbing the current fiat currency referred to as ferns, in the source providing a stable value store and allowing a smoother transition, not a crash.
A softer landing, maybe? And this ties into 0 point energy emerging.
Yes, the financial reset and the emergence of zero-point tech are seen as happening concurrently.
But 0 point won't be a big public reveal.
Probably not, according to this. Introduced quietly, perhaps through government infrastructure projects like upgrading power grids or data centers with some kind of new civilian conservation corps.
And it spreads organically from there, people figuring it out.
That's the idea. Distributed innovation. Like the example given of converting radio waves to electricity, it happens without a huge announcement. It'll be gradual, not disrupting the financial reset.
The source also mentioned recent news confirming old conspiracy theories, like the FDA.
Yeah, it alludes to a quiet FDA admission and also JP Morgan changing its tune on Bitcoin, presenting these as examples of fringe ideas becoming accepted reality.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, Silver, what's the take there?
A breakout is imminent, apparently, driven by industrial demand for zero-point tech and green energy applications.
So industrial demand will be huge.
That's the prediction. So much so that the government might need to discourage individual hoarding to secure supply for industry.
How would they do that? Not like they did with gold confiscation.
Probably not legislative confiscation, no. More likely, economic means a vacuum approach to pull silver into industrial use where it's needed.
So the advice is hold on to your physical silver.
For as long as you can, yes. Expecting a sudden price jump, maybe making it unobtainium for a while. It references past silver squeezes and talks about potential future prices in terms of those fern notes, the old currency.
And follow David Morgan for silver market insights.
That's the recommendation given in the transcript, yes.
What about things like auditing the Fed or checking Fort Knox? Are those major triggers?
They'll likely happen and correlate with emotional peaks, probably after August, September, but they're not seen as the main drivers anymore.
Why not? Seems like a big deal.
Because the focus, according to this perspective, has shifted to the bigger existential issue, the Golden Dome, planetary defense. That takes priority.
Okay. Then there's talk about the Elohim
Mm.
and a 2032 return.
Yeah, referencing a Pharisee belief. And the appearance of Oumuamua might have sped up their timeline, supposedly.
But the current space threat isn't necessarily them.
Not necessarily, no. And there's a suggestion that global powers might be distancing themselves from a previously submissive stance towards the Elohim.
And ascension in the Talmud means becoming like them, managerially.
Kind of, yeah. Replicating their management style, not literal flying away. Rejecting expensive, maybe useless space warning systems is seen as a sign of this new, less subservient thinking in government.
What about the Vatican's role in all this? Trustee for the planet.
That's one interpretation mentioned, the Pope Vatican acting as trustee on behalf of the Elohim. But Trump's actions might signal a shift away from that trusteeship.
Trump's Jesuit background is mentioned, implying he understands this Elohim stuff.
Yes, that connection is made. It fits into the broader forecast of religions declining, shifting towards direct spirituality, a personal connection with the universe or ontology, making intermediaries less relevant.
Okay. And the Israeli mistake. Is that still on the table?
The transcript expresses hope it'll be avoided, crediting some of Trump's recent moves as aiming to prevent it.
But the language around it might still happen, even if the event doesn't.
That's a possibility raised, yes. The forecast language finding a different manifestation.
Let's quickly touch on those emotional tension charts again. What do they show?
They're visualizations, a heat map, a line graph tracking buildups and releases in collective emotional tension based on language analysis.
And social effects follow military tension.
That's a noted trend, yeah. Spikes in military-related language are often followed by social shifts or unrest.
And there's a big military release expected in July, possibly linked to tribunals.
That's the specific forecast mentioned, yes. A significant release related to military language, potentially opening the door for military tribunal.
Which might explain expanding places like Gitmo or Alcatraz.
That's the connection made. Needing secure, clean venues to house a potentially large number of criminals after corruption is cleared from the regular system.
Military tribunals seen as faster, cleaner.
That's the rationale presented. Though the timing isn't definitively linked only to that July-December period, earlier military activity related to UFOs is also part of the data.
Okay, finally, let's bring it back to that initial feeling. That sense of unease, time speeding up. That's a symptom of the singularity.
According to this source, yes. It's humanity's collective clock speed rapidly increasing, causing that dissonance and feeling that things are wrong or accelerating.
So we need to shift our paradigm away from the linear future.
That's the advice. Understanding and embracing the eternal now could reduce the stress and anxiety associated with these changes.
And understanding this can actually change behavior, weaken old control systems.
That's the potential consequence. A fundamental shift in understanding time and reality could lead to significant behavioral changes. And the stress people feel now is partly because they don't consciously grasp why things feel so strange.
That seems to be the implication. A lot of unresolved tension stemming from this massive, poorly understood shift underway.
So, wrapping it all up, we've journeyed from a potential Voyager 1 quantum message.
Right. Through brain changes, AI tapping into consciousness, the erosion of linear time.
Towards the eternal, now zero-point energy emerging quietly, global financial and political resets.
And this overarching idea of a planetary shift, maybe even involving non-human intelligence in a space threat. It's quite a narrative.
It really is. Which leaves us, and you listening, with a final thought. Have you noticed those little shifts yourself? Time feeling weird, gut feelings being stronger.
Maybe pay a bit more attention to those subtle cues, those qualia. What might your own inner experience be telling you about these larger changes?
Absolutely. It's worth exploring these ideas more if they resonate. Look into Shinshin Sodu maybe, or just contemplate the eternal now. Seems like there's a lot to potentially unpack in our own experience right now.
Definitely feels like fertile ground for thought. Thanks for exploring this, well, wacky woo world with us today.